A father's instincts awaken. Nathan Miles, a widowed father and former CIA operative, stood in his sunlit kitchen, carefully slicing vegetables for dinner. The simple routine was a comforting contrast to the chaos he once faced. After years of clandestine missions and high-stakes operations, Nathan craved this kind of calm, watching his daughter, Amara, thrive and seeing her grow into a strong and ambitious young woman. The rhythmic chopping paused as his phone buzzed on the counter. Glancing at the screen, Nathan saw Amara's name and answered immediately, his voice softening. "Hey, sweetheart. How's the trip?" Amara's voice came through with her usual warmth, though Nathan detected a slight edge beneath her cheerfulness. "Hi, Dad. The college visit was amazing. The campus is beautiful, and I met some great people." "That's great to hear," Nathan replied, leaning against the counter. "Everything goes smoothly." "Mostly." Amara hesitated, her tone faltering. "There was this guy at a rest stop. He was staring at me for a bit too long. Made me uncomfortable, but it's nothing. I'm fine now." Nathan's jaw tightened, his instincts immediately on high alert. "What do you mean, nothing? Did you report it to anyone?" "Dad, it's okay," she said, more firmly. "I handled it. I'm on my way to the hotel now. Stop worrying so much." Before Nathan could press further, muffled voices and hurried footsteps filtered through the call. Amara's breathing grew unsteady. "Dad," her voice trembled. "Something's not right. Amara, stay calm and talk to me. What's going on?" Nathan's tone shifted, firm and commanding. There was a scuffle, the sound of a phone clattering to the ground, and Amara's scream pierced through the line. Nathan's heart dropped as the call went dead. For a moment, the world stood still. Then his training kicked in, the years of instinct and discipline overriding his panic. Nathan sprinted to his laptop and launched a tracking app, a precaution he had insisted Amara install despite her protests. As the app loaded, he paced the room, his mind racing through every possible scenario. The screen displayed her last known location, a desolate rest stop along Highway 12, near the notoriously hostile town of Ralston, a place with a dark reputation for crime and racial violence. Nathan clenched his fists. His daughter was in danger, and he wouldn't wait for the system to fail her. Throwing necessities into a go bag, he armed himself with his concealed handgun, a tactical knife, and a flashlight. Nathan paused for a moment to take a deep breath, focusing his mind. The calm he felt now wasn't peace. It was the razor-sharp focus of a man on a mission. The rest stop. The rest stop was deserted when Nathan arrived, the air thick with an eerie silence. Amara's car sat abandoned, the driver's side door ajar, and her phone lay shattered on the ground. A piece of her scarf fluttered from a nearby bush, a cruel marker of her struggle. Nathan's jaw tightened as he scanned the area. The tire marks of a heavy vehicle led away from the scene, heading toward Ralston. Inside the small convenience store, the attendant, a wiry young man with shifty eyes, froze as Nathan approached. "You work here?" Nathan asked, his voice low and intense. "Ah, yeah," the attendant stammered. "You see anything?" A black girl, about 18, taken in a struggle. The man hesitated, glancing nervously toward the door. There was a van. Black, tinted windows. Left about 20 minutes ago. "Which direction?" Nathan demanded, his tone leaving no room for debate. The man pointed west. Nathan nodded grimly and left without another word. Back in his car, he floored the accelerator, his thoughts racing faster than the vehicle. Every fiber of his being focused on one goal, bringing Amara home. The call for help. As he drove toward Ralston, Nathan placed a call to the local police department. His voice was firm and direct as he relayed the situation. The officer on the other end dismissed him with an apathetic drawl. "She's 18, probably just ran off with someone. You sure you're not overreacting?" Nathan's grip on the steering wheel tightened, "Listen carefully," he growled. "I heard my daughter scream. I tracked her location. If you're not going to help, I will." The officer's nonchalant tone only deepened Nathan's resolve. He disconnected the call, realizing he was on his own. Amara's voice echoed in his mind, her fear cutting into his soul. He had seen countless horrors in his career, but none of them had ever been this personal. A dangerous town. As Nathan approached Ralston, memories of the town's grim history resurfaced. Racial tensions and unchecked corruption had made it a breeding ground for hatred and violence. He parked at a gas station on the outskirts, careful to remain unnoticed as he gathered intelligence. Inside, he found a group of locals whose rough demeanor matched the town's reputation. Pretending to browse, Nathan listened to their conversation. Amid the casual racism and crude jokes, he caught a crucial detail. A black van matching the description of Amara's captors had been seen heading toward an old mill on the edge of town. Nathan's pulse quickened. He paid for a bottle of water and left, his mind already working out the next steps. The mill was isolated, ideal for hiding something or someone. His instincts told him this was where he'd find answers. Nathan's journey to rescue Amara had begun, and he was prepared to confront whatever lay ahead. His daughter's life depended on it, and Nathan Miles was not a man who failed. Into the wolf's den. The old mill on the edge of Ralston was a monument to decay. Its rusting metal frame creaked under the weight of years of neglect, surrounded by a dense thicket of overgrown weeds. The windows were broken, jagged shards reflecting the faint glow of the moon. But Nathan knew better than to judge by appearances. What seemed abandoned could just as easily be a fortress for those who wanted to remain unseen. Nathan parked his car a safe distance away and approached on foot. The cool night air carried the faint hum of machinery and voices, confirming that the mill was anything but abandoned. He crouched low, staying hidden among the tall grass, and raised his binoculars. The scene before him sent a wave of controlled fury coursing through his veins. A black van, its back doors open, sat parked near the entrance. Two armed guards flanked the vehicle, casually smoking cigarettes and laughing. Further beyond, more men moved in and out of the building, carrying crates and duffel bags. Nathan's trained eye quickly discerned the pattern in their movements, noting the weak spots in their patrols. As he surveyed the area, his thoughts drifted to Amara. She was strong, sharp, and resourceful. He had raised her to be that way. But the thought of her at the mercy of these men, monsters who saw her as nothing more than a commodity, made his hands tighten into fists. He pushed the anger aside, letting his training take over. The approach. Nathan circled the perimeter, his movements silent and deliberate. He spotted a gap in the rusted fence, just wide enough for him to squeeze through. Crawling on his stomach, he slid into the compound and pressed himself against the shadowy side of the building. His mind was a finely tuned machine, cataloging every detail: the flickering floodlights, the positions of the guards, the faint sound of voices arguing inside. Reaching the building's back entrance, Nathan pulled out a small toolkit from his backpack. He worked quickly, picking the lock with practiced ease. The door clicked open, and he slipped inside, the cool, damp air of the mill greeting him. He paused, letting his eyes adjust to the dim light. Inside, the mill was a maze of rusting equipment, towering conveyor belts, and stacks of wooden pallets. The smell of oil and mildew was overpowering. He crept forward, sticking to the shadows, his ears tuned to every sound. In the distance, he heard muffled voices, a conversation growing louder as he approached. A secret revealed. Nathan ducked behind a stack of crates, peering out to see two men standing over a desk cluttered with maps and documents. They were deep in conversation, their voices laced with arrogance. "She's already been moved," one of them said. "The boss wants her at the safe house by morning. Big auction coming up, prime lot," he called her. Nathan's heart pounded. They were talking about Amara. "What about the others?" the second man asked. "They're staying here for now. Smaller auctions, lower prices. We focus on the big money." Nathan's grip tightened on the knife in his hand. He could end them now, but the noise would alert the others. Instead, he waited, memorizing every word and detail. When the men finally moved toward the main hall, Nathan approached the desk, scanning the papers they had left behind. A map caught his attention. It marked several locations in the area, but one was circled in red: a warehouse on the outskirts of Ralston. Scrawled next to it were the words, "High-value transport." 4 a.m., Nathan's gut clenched. That had to be where they were taking Amara. The prisoners. As he pocketed the map, a faint sound reached Nathan's ears, a soft whimper, almost imperceptible. He followed it, weaving through the maze of machinery, until he came to a row of makeshift cages, hidden behind a large stack of crates. Inside were young women, their faces pale and gaunt, their wrists bound with zip ties. Their eyes widened in terror when they saw him. Nathan knelt beside the nearest cage, his voice low and soothing. "I'm here to help. Stay quiet, and I'll get you out." One of the girls, barely able to sit up, whispered, "They'll kill us. They'll kill you." Nathan shook his head. Not tonight. He examined the locks on the cages, realizing he didn't have the time or tools to free them all quietly. A lump formed in his throat as he made a painful decision. He reached into his pocket and handed the girl a small folding knife. "If anyone comes, defend yourselves. I'll be back." The girl nodded, clutching the knife, as if it were her lifeline. A narrow escape. Nathan continued deeper into the mill, searching for more information. The sounds of heavy boots and raised voices warned him that his presence was suspected. He ducked into a dark corner, his back pressed against a cold metal pillar as a group of guards passed by, their flashlights sweeping the area. One guard stopped, his flashlight beam landing mere inches from Nathan's face. Nathan held his breath, his muscles coiled like a spring. The guard lingered for a moment before muttering something under his breath and moving on. Nathan exhaled slowly, his pulse steadying. He knew he couldn't leave without sabotaging their operation. Spotting a large control panel near the center of the mill, Nathan crept toward it. The panel controlled the mill's power and security systems. He quickly located the main circuit breaker and pulled out a small explosive charge from his bag. Setting the timer for 5 minutes, Nathan placed the charge and retreated to the exit. As he slipped back into the night, the faint beeping of the timer echoed in his ears. From a safe distance, Nathan watched as the explosive detonated. The mill was plunged into darkness, shouts and confusion erupting as guards scrambled to regain control. The distraction was enough to cover his retreat. A race against time. Back in his car, Nathan unfolded the map he had taken. The warehouse circled in red loomed in his mind like a beacon. He glanced at the clock on his dashboard. 2:30 a.m. He had less than 2 hours to reach Amara before the transport moved her to an even more secure location. As he sped down the highway, his resolve hardened. He had dismantled empires, taken down warlords, and survived impossible odds. This time, it was personal. The men who had taken Amara didn't know it yet, but they had signed their death warrants the moment they laid hands on his daughter. The warehouse of shadows. Nathan's car screeched to a halt just outside the warehouse perimeter. The clock read 3:17 a.m. He had less than an hour before the transport would move Amara. His mind raced, calculating options. The warehouse loomed in the darkness, a massive, dilapidated structure surrounded by barbed wire fencing. Floodlights scanned the grounds in rhythmic arcs, illuminating armed guards patrolling the property. Nathan retrieved his gear from the trunk. A silenced pistol, a combat knife, and a small satchel containing smoke grenades and C4. Every piece of equipment had a purpose. He tightened his gloves, pulled his hood over his head, and moved swiftly toward the rear of the property, where the fence was partially collapsed. The silent entry. Nathan crouched low as he approached the fence, the sound of crunching gravel under his boots barely audible. He flattened himself against the ground and crawled beneath the damaged wire, his movements fluid and practiced. The floodlights passed overhead, casting long shadows across the yard. He timed his approach perfectly, slipping into the blind spots between patrols. Ahead, the rear entrance of the warehouse was guarded by two men. Nathan observed their pattern. One leaned against the wall smoking, while the other paced in short, distracted steps. With a deep breath, he crept closer. Nathan struck with precision. The first guard never saw him coming. Nathan's knife silenced him with a swift strike to the neck. Before the second guard could react, Nathan grabbed him in a chokehold, dragging him into the shadows until the man slumped unconscious. He quickly hid the bodies behind a stack of crates and slipped through the door, entering the belly of the beast. Inside the warehouse's interior was a stark contrast to its exterior. It was a hub of illicit activity, with bright fluorescent lights revealing rows of crates, vehicles, and armed men moving about with urgency. Nathan's sharp eyes scanned the space, noting the high vantage points, choke points, and exits. The main floor was a sea of activity, but his target lay beyond. A metal staircase leading to a second-floor office. He kept to the shadows, his movements silent as he navigated the chaos. Passing by stacks of crates, he caught glimpses of the horrors hidden within: clothes, personal belongings, and photos of young women. His stomach churned, but he forced himself to focus. Amara was his mission. She was alive, and he was her only chance. A heated argument pulled his attention. Two men stood by a large white van, its back doors slightly ajar. One was a wiry, nervous figure clutching a clipboard. The other was a tall, scar-faced man with a commanding presence. Razor. Nathan's blood ran cold as he recognized the name. Razor was infamous in covered circles, a trafficker, arms dealer, and a man who thrived on cruelty. Nathan's fingers itched to end him right there, but patience held him back. He needed to ensure Amara's safety before making his move. Amara's location. Nathan's ears tuned in as Razor barked orders. Make sure the cargo is secure. The buyer wants her pristine, not a scratch. She leaves at 4 a.m. sharp. No screw-ups. The wiry man nodded nervously, scribbling notes. She's in the holding room upstairs, boss. Locked and sedated. Nathan's jaw tightened. He made a mental map of the warehouse layout, noting the staircase Razor had pointed to. It was heavily guarded, but he had faced worse odds. He checked his watch. 3:35 a.m. Time was running out. The distraction. Nathan reached into his satchel and pulled out a smoke grenade. He crouched behind a stack of crates, calculated the trajectory, and lobbed it toward the far side of the warehouse. It clattered to the ground before releasing a thick, choking cloud of smoke. Shouts erupted as guards scrambled to investigate, their confusion providing the perfect cover. Using the chaos, Nathan darted toward the staircase. He took out two guards along the way with silenced shots, their bodies crumpling silently to the floor. He ascended the stairs two at a time, his pistol raised and ready. The holding room. At the top of the staircase, Nathan encountered a locked metal door. He quickly retrieved a small lock-picking tool from his pocket and worked with practiced precision. The lock clicked open, and he pushed the door ajar, his pistol leading the way. Inside, the room was dimly lit, with a faint chemical odor hanging in the air. Amara lay on a narrow cot, her wrists bound and her breathing shallow. Her face was pale, and her hair was matted, but she was alive. Nathan moved to her side, his heart pounding as he gently shook her. "Amara," he whispered, his voice cracking. "It's me, Dad. I've got you." Her eyelids fluttered open, her eyes glassy from the sedatives. "Dad," she murmured, her voice weak. "I'm here," he assured her, cutting the restraints on her wrists. "We're getting out of here." Amara tried to sit up but swayed unsteadily. Nathan supported her, his movements tender despite the urgency. He glanced at his watch. 3:50 a.m. They had 10 minutes. The escape. Nathan hoisted Amara onto his back, her arms draped around his shoulders. He moved quickly but cautiously, retracing his steps down the staircase. The smoke grenade had dissipated, and the guards were regrouping. The element of surprise was gone. As they reached the main floor, a shout rang out. "There he is!" Razor's men spotted them, raising their weapons. Bullets ricocheted off the metal walls as Nathan dove behind a forklift, shielding Amara with his body. He returned fire, taking out 2 guards with precise shots. His military training shone as he calculated his movements, using the machinery as cover. But the numbers were against him, and Razor's voice boomed across the warehouse. "Bring me the girl. Kill him." Nathan gritted his teeth. He reached into his satchel and pulled out the C4 charges. Planting them on the base of a large support beam, he armed the detonator. "Hold on, sweetheart," he whispered to Amara as he carried her toward the exit. The warehouse erupted into chaos as Nathan triggered the explosives. The ground shook, and the structure groaned as the support beam collapsed. Razor's shouts were drowned out by the deafening roar of falling debris. A temporary victory. Outside, Nathan sprinted toward his car, his breath ragged. He placed Amara in the passenger seat and peeled out onto the highway, the burning warehouse shrinking in the rearview mirror. Amara stirred, her voice barely audible. "Dad, how did you?" Nathan glanced at her, his face etched with determination. "Rest, Amara. I've got you." But his mind was already racing. This wasn't over. Razor was still alive, and the network that had taken his daughter was far-reaching. Nathan knew he had started a war, and he wasn't going to stop until every last piece of it was destroyed. War on their turf. Nathan drove with the steady focus of a man on a mission. The glow of the burning warehouse faded in the rearview mirror, but the fire in his chest burned brighter. Amara sat slumped in the passenger seat, her breathing steady but shallow. The sedatives were still in her system, but she was alive. That was all that mattered for now. His mind raced as he planned his next move. Razor's network extended far beyond the warehouse. That much was clear. Nathan's years in the CIA had taught him that operations like this weren't isolated. They were woven into a tapestry of corruption, money, and power. To destroy Razor's empire, Nathan needed to cut its head off. But first, he had to ensure Amara's safety. A safe haven. Nathan pulled into the driveway of an old hunting cabin deep in the woods, a safe house he had kept secret even from his closest allies. The structure was unassuming, hidden among towering trees, with reinforced doors and a secure perimeter. He carried Amara inside and gently laid her on a worn but clean cot in the corner of the main room. She stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "Dad, what's happening?" she murmured. Nathan knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You're safe now," he said softly. "Rest. I'll explain everything when you're stronger." Amara's eyes closed again, her breathing evening out. Nathan stood, his expression hardening. He had bought them time, but not much. Razor would already be mobilizing his resources, and Nathan needed to strike before the enemy regrouped. Reaching out for intel, Nathan powered up a laptop and connected to a secure network. His fingers moved swiftly across the keyboard as he reached out to Marcus, his old squadmate turned private investigator. Within minutes, Marcus appeared on the screen, his face etched with concern. "Cole, what the hell's going on? I saw the warehouse fire on the news. They're saying it was a gas leak." Nathan smirked grimly. "They always do. I found Amara, but Razor's still out there. I need intel. Everything you've got on his operation." Marcus nodded, his fingers flying over his keyboard. "Give me a second." After a moment, he continued, "Razor's operation is bigger than we thought. He's connected to a trafficking network spanning multiple states. They use shell companies to launder money and private auctions to sell their victims. I traced some of his assets to a nightclub in the city, the Iron Fang. It's a front for his operation, and Razor himself is known to frequent it." Nathan's eyes narrowed. "How secure is it?" Marcus frowned. "Heavily guarded. Surveillance everywhere. But if you can get inside, You might find the leverage you need. There's a server room in the basement where they keep their records. Nathan nodded. Send me the blueprints. Already on it, Marcus said. Cole, this is dangerous even for you. Are you sure you want to do this alone? Nathan's jaw tightened. I'm not stopping until Razor's empire is ashes. Infiltration. The Iron Fang was nestled in the heart of the city, its neon sign casting an eerie glow over the darkened street. Expensive cars lined the curb, and a steady stream of patrons, some dressed to the nines, others with an air of dangerous arrogance, filed inside. Nathan parked a few blocks away and approached on foot, blending into the shadows. Dressed in a sharp suit he had acquired for the occasion, Nathan joined the line outside. His appearance was polished, but his eyes scanned every detail: the number of guards, the placement of security cameras, the layout of the building's exterior. His mind worked quickly, committing it all to memory. Inside, the club pulsed with energy. Music thumped loudly, and strobe lights illuminated the crowd. Nathan moved through the chaos with practiced ease, his sharp gaze taking in the details that mattered. The concealed weapons under the guards' jackets, the hidden exits, and the discreet but purposeful movements of Razor's men. He approached the bar and ordered a drink, using the opportunity to strike up a conversation with the bartender, a woman with sharp eyes and an air of quiet authority. Busy night, Nathan said casually, slipping her $100 bill. The bartender glanced at him, her expression unreadable. Always is. What's your angle? I'm looking for someone, Nathan replied, sliding a photo of Razor across the bar. He owes me. The bartender hesitated, then leaned in closer. You didn't hear this from me, but he's in the VIP lounge upstairs. Good luck getting past his goons. Nathan nodded, slipping her another bill. Thanks. The VIP lounge. Nathan made his way toward the staircase leading to the VIP lounge, his posture confident but unassuming. A burly guard blocked the entrance, his arms crossed. Private party, the guard growled. Nathan reached into his pocket and produced a forged invitation. I'm expected. The guard scrutinized the document before reluctantly stepping aside. Nathan ascended the stairs, his heart pounding with anticipation. The VIP lounge was a stark contrast to the chaos below. Plush leather couches and dim lighting created an air of exclusivity. Razor sat at the center of it all, flanked by two armed men. His scared face twisted into a smirk as he sipped an expensive whiskey. Nathan moved closer, careful to stay unnoticed. He slipped behind a heavy curtain, finding himself in a hallway leading to the basement stairs. He descended quickly, his silenced pistol drawn. The server room. The basement was cold and sterile, filled with rows of servers humming softly. Nathan located the main terminal and plugged in a small device, a tool Marcus had provided to copy and transmit the data. As the device worked, Nathan kept watch, his senses on high alert. Footsteps echoed down the stairs. Nathan flattened himself against the wall, his pistol aimed. A guard entered, his flashlight sweeping the room. Before he could react, Nathan took him down silently, lowering the body to the floor. The device beeped, signaling that the data transfer was complete. Nathan retrieved it and moved swiftly back toward the staircase, but the sound of Razor's voice stopped him in his tracks. I know you're here, Razor called, his tone mocking. Did you really think you could walk into my house and not get caught? Nathan's heart raced, but his expression remained calm. He adjusted his grip on his pistol and stepped into the open, facing Razor and his men. You took my daughter, Nathan said, his voice low and menacing. That was your first mistake. Razor laughed, the sound cold and cruel. And this is yours. The tension in the room snapped like a rubber band as Razor's men opened fire. Nathan dove for cover, his training taking over as he returned fire with deadly precision. Bullets ricocheted off the metal walls, and the air filled with the acrid smell of gunpowder. A narrow victory. Nathan fought with the precision of a man who had nothing left to lose. One by one, Razor's men fell until it was just the two of them. Razor drew a knife, lunging at Nathan with surprising speed. The two men grappled, their movements brutal and desperate. Nathan finally gained the upper hand, slamming Razor against the wall and pinning him in place. "Where's the rest of your operation?" Nathan demanded. Razor sneered, blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. "You'll never stop it. This is bigger than you." Nathan's grip tightened. "Then I'll burn it all." With a final powerful strike, Razor crumpled to the ground, unconscious. Nathan retrieved his device and slipped out through the chaos of the club. He had what he needed to dismantle Razor's network piece by piece. As he disappeared into the night, Nathan knew this was only the beginning. Razor's empire was vast, but so was Nathan's resolve. He wouldn't stop until every last piece of it was destroyed, and until Amara's future was safe. The empire crumbles. Nathan sat in the dimly lit safe house, the glow of his laptop casting sharp shadows across his face. Amara slept fitfully on the cot nearby, her breathing steady but her body still weak from the trauma. Nathan glanced at her for a moment, his resolve hardening. Razor's operation wasn't just about his daughter. It was about justice for every girl caught in the web of exploitation. He leaned forward and began analyzing the data he had pulled from the server at the Iron Fang. The files were exhaustive. Transaction records, shipping manifests, coded communications, and a list of clients. Nathan's stomach churned as he read the details, but he pushed his emotions aside. The network was larger and more organized than he had anticipated, with ties to influential figures, business moguls, politicians, and even law enforcement. Exposing the truth. Nathan called Marcus, his ally in this fight, via the secure line. Marcus's face appeared on the screen, his expression serious. "You've got something?" Marcus asked, his voice tinged with urgency. Nathan nodded. "I've got everything. Names, accounts, routes. This isn't just Razor. He's part of a syndicate. We need to take this public." Marcus frowned. "That's dangerous, Cole. These people don't just have money. They've got power. They'll bury this and come after you." Nathan's voice was cold. "Let them. We go public, but not through the usual channels. Leak the files to the independent media outlets, the ones who can't be bought." Marcus nodded, understanding the weight of the decision. "I'll make the arrangements. But Cole, once this goes live, you'll be a target. They'll send everything they've got to shut you down." "Let them try," Nathan replied, his voice resolute. Setting the trap. Nathan turned his attention back to the files, isolating Razor's last active safe house, a compound located deep in a remote industrial district. From the intercepted communications, it was clear this was where the syndicate was regrouping. It was also where they intended to launch a counterstrike against Nathan for the chaos he had caused. Good, Nathan thought. He wanted them together. Nathan spent the next few hours preparing. His gear was meticulously checked. Firearms, tactical explosives, smoke grenades, and body armor. He wasn't just going to hit Razor's operation. He was going to destroy it. This wasn't a rescue anymore. It was a war. The safe house assault. Nathan arrived at the compound just after midnight. The area was eerily quiet, the buildings casting long shadows under the pale moonlight. He parked his car several blocks away and approached on foot, using the cover of darkness to avoid detection. Through his binoculars, Nathan scoped out the compound. Razor's men were stationed at key points, roof snipers, ground patrols, and sentries by the entrance. The main building, a sprawling warehouse, was brightly lit, with guards moving in and out. Nathan noted their movements, identifying weaknesses in their perimeter. He planted his first charge on the eastern gate, timing it with the patrol schedule. Then he moved to the rear of the building, where he spotted a utility entrance. After disabling the lock, he slipped inside, his silenced pistol drawn. The interior was a hive of activity. Razor's lieutenants barked orders as they coordinated their efforts to strike back at Nathan. Stacks of weapons, crates of cash, and evidence of their trafficking operation were scattered across the space. Nathan moved swiftly, taking out guards one by one with surgical precision. He avoided detection as he planted explosives at key structural points, ensuring the building would collapse when the time came. The confrontation. Nathan reached the heart of the compound, a large meeting room where Razor and his top lieutenants were gathered around a table. Maps and files were spread before them, and Razor's voice carried through the room, filled with venom. "That bastard's a ghost, but we'll find him," Razor snarled. "No one takes me down." Nathan stepped into the doorway, his pistol aimed at Razor. "You're wrong about that." The room erupted into chaos. Razor's men scrambled for their weapons, but Nathan was faster. He fired with deadly accuracy, taking down 2 lieutenants before the others could react. Razor flipped the table for cover, barking orders to his men. Nathan moved with the precision of a predator, using the chaos to his advantage. Smoke grenades filled the room, disorienting Razor's men as Nathan closed the distance. When the smoke cleared, Razor stood alone, a knife in his hand, his face twisted with fury. "You think you're a hero?" Razor spat. "You're just one man. You can't stop this." Nathan's voice was ice cold. "Watch me." The 2 men clashed in a brutal hand-to-hand fight. Razor was strong and vicious, but Nathan's training gave him the edge. He blocked Razor's strikes and countered with calculated blows, each one driving Razor closer to defeat. With a final, powerful punch, Nathan sent Razor crashing to the ground. He pinned him, his pistol pressed to Razor's temple. "Where are the rest of the girls?" Nathan demanded. Razor laughed, blood staining his teeth. "You'll never save them all." Nathan tightened his grip, his voice a low growl. "I'll save enough." The explosion. Nathan dragged Razor out of the building as the timer on his explosives counted down. He left Razor tied to a post in the courtyard, ensuring he couldn't escape. As Nathan disappeared into the shadows, the compound erupted in a massive explosion. The shockwave shook the ground, and flames consumed the building, illuminating the night sky. Razor's empire, built on pain and suffering, crumbled before his eyes. The fallout. Back at the safe house, Nathan watched the news on a small television. The leaked files had gone public, sparking outrage across the country. Independent journalists uncovered the depths of the trafficking network, exposing the powerful figures involved. Arrests were already being made, and the syndicate's operations were collapsing. Amara stirred on the cot, her voice soft. "Dad." Nathan turned to her, his hardened expression softening. "I'm here, sweetheart. It's over." Amara reached for his hand, her grip weak but determined. "Thank you." Nathan nodded, his heart heavy with the knowledge of what they had endured. But for the first time in a long time, he allowed himself a small glimmer of hope. The fight wasn't over, but they had won a battle that mattered. And Nathan Miles wasn't done yet. A reckoning and redemption. The days after the explosion at Razor's compound were a blur of chaos and revelations. The leaked files were spreading like wildfire, dominating headlines and exposing the rot at the core of society. Prominent figures were named: corporate CEOs, politicians, and law enforcement officials, all tied to Razor's trafficking ring. But for Nathan, the battle was personal, not political. He had taken down Razor's operation, but the syndicate's roots ran deep. Sitting in the safe house, Nathan watched Amara sleep. Her color was returning, and the tension in her face had eased. She would recover physically, but Nathan knew the emotional scars would take longer to heal. His guilt weighed heavily on him, but he pushed it aside. There was work to do. A new threat emerges. Marcus's voice crackled through the secure line. "Cole, you've stirred up a hornet's nest. Razor might be out of the picture, but his allies aren't going down quietly. They're retaliating." Nathan leaned forward, his jaw tightening. "What kind of retaliation?" "Targeted hits," Marcus replied grimly. They've already taken out a journalist who broke the story, and I've intercepted chatter. They're coming for you. They're calling in someone big." Nathan's eyes narrowed. "Who?" Marcus hesitated. "Elias Kane." The name hit Nathan like a punch. Kane was a mercenary, a ghost in the world of black ops, and one of the most ruthless operatives Nathan had ever encountered. Their paths had crossed years ago during a mission that left Nathan with a scar on his side and Kane with a vendetta. If Kane was involved, this wasn't just business, it was personal. "I'll be ready," Nathan said, his voice cold. Marcus sighed. "I'll send you everything I have on Kane. But be careful, Cole. This guy doesn't miss. Fortifying the safe house." Nathan knew he couldn't stay hidden forever, but he needed to protect Amara until the fight was over. He spent the next day fortifying the safe house. Tripwires, motion detectors, and hidden cameras were placed around the property. He dug into his stash of weapons, laying out an arsenal that would make a small militia jealous. Amara, now more alert, watched him with growing concern. "Dad, what's happening? Why are you doing all this?" Nathan paused, his hand stilling on a rifle. He turned to face her, his expression softening. "There are dangerous people out there, sweetheart. They won't stop until they've silenced everyone who stands against them. I won't let them hurt you again." Amara's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. "What can I do to help?" Nathan smiled faintly. "Rest. That's the best way you can help me right now." The hunter becomes the hunted. Night fell, and the forest surrounding the safe house was silent, save for the occasional rustle of leaves. Nathan sat in the living room, his pistol resting on the table, his senses sharp. He had felt this tension before, the calm before a storm. At 3:00 a.m., the first signal came. A motion detector beeped softly, indicating movement along the perimeter. Nathan moved to the monitors, where he saw 3 figures moving stealthily through the woods. Their black gear and coordinated movements confirmed his suspicions. Kane's team. Nathan moved swiftly, waking Amara, and guiding her to a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards. "Stay here," he whispered. "No matter what happens, don't come out until I get you." Amara grabbed his arm, fear in her eyes. "Dad, trust me," he said firmly, his voice leaving no room for argument. As he closed the hatch, the first gunshot shattered the silence. Nathan rolled to cover, his training taking over as he assessed the situation. The attackers had split into 3 groups, encircling the house, Kane's signature tactic. A deadly dance. Nathan took out the first intruder with a silenced shot as the man attempted to breach the back door. The second attacker was met with a carefully placed tripwire, triggering an explosion that shook the ground and sent shrapnel through the air. The third intruder, however, was smarter. He used the chaos to slip inside, moving like a shadow. Nathan caught the faint creak of a floorboard and spun, firing a single shot that dropped the man instantly. But the real threat was Kane. The mercenary was nowhere to be seen, which meant he was watching, waiting. Nathan stepped outside, his pistol raised, his eyes scanning the darkness. "Kane," he called out. "Let's finish this." A low, mocking laugh echoed through the trees. Still the same old Nathan. Kane's voice replied, smooth and taunting. Always so eager to play the hero. Nathan's eyes narrowed. "You came all this way to die. Brave." "Not today," Kane said, stepping into view. He held a sniper rifle, its scope glinting in the moonlight. "But I will enjoy taking you apart." The 2 men circled each other, their movements deliberate. Kane fired first, the shot grazing Nathan's shoulder as he ducked behind a tree. Nathan retaliated, his bullet striking the ground inches from Kane's foot. The fight was brutal and precise, a deadly game of cat and mouse. Nathan used the terrain to his advantage, outmaneuvering Kane and forcing him into close quarters. The final clash came near a fallen tree, where Nathan disarmed Kane with a well-timed strike and pinned him to the ground. Kane smirked, blood dripping from his mouth. "You think killing me will change anything?" Nathan pressed his pistol to Kane's temple. No, but it'll buy me time. With a single shot, Kane's reign of terror ended. A new beginning. The sun rose over the safe house, casting warm light over the forest. Nathan sat on the porch, his arm in a makeshift sling, watching as Amara stepped outside. She looked at him, her expression a mix of relief and determination. "It's over?" she asked. Nathan nodded. "For now." Amara sat beside him, her voice quiet. "What happens next?" Nathan glanced at her, his eyes softening. "We move forward. Together." The fight had cost them both dearly, but it had also given them something precious. A second chance. Nathan knew the syndicate wasn't entirely destroyed, but its power was fractured, its influence waning. He had lit a fire that couldn't be extinguished, and he would keep fighting until every last ember of that evil was snuffed out. For now, though, he allowed himself a moment of peace. Amara was safe, and that was all that mattered. Epilogue. Justice reigns. Weeks later, Nathan watched as national news outlets reported on the syndicate's collapse. Arrests continued, and Razor's network was dismantled piece by piece. Independent journalists hailed the whistleblower who had leaked the files as a hero, though Nathan's name was never mentioned. That was how he wanted it. In a quiet town far from the chaos, Nathan and Amara began to rebuild their lives. The scars would remain, but so would their bond. Together, they had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. Nathan knew one thing for certain. As long as there was evil in the world, he would stand against it, and he would never let anything threaten the people he loved again. A final reckoning. The morning after the assault on the safe house, Nathan worked silently, dismantling the remaining tripwires and cameras. Amara watched from the porch, her face pale but resolute. She hadn't said much since the attack, but Nathan could see the questions in her eyes. "Are they gone?" she finally asked. "For now," Nathan replied, his voice steady. He glanced at her, his expression softening. "But this isn't over." Amara frowned. "You mean there are more of them?" Nathan nodded. "The syndicate won't stop because Razor and Kane are gone. Someone else will step up to take their place unless we finish this." Amara hesitated, then stepped closer. "What can I do? I'm tired of being a victim, Dad. I want to fight." Nathan's heart swelled with pride and concern. "You've already fought more than anyone should have to. But if you want to help, I'll need your strength for what comes next." Amara met his gaze with a fierce determination. "I'm with you." The last target. The files Nathan had retrieved from Razor's operation pointed to a single location, an estate hidden deep in the countryside. It was the syndicate's central hub, where their leaders gathered to coordinate operations. The estate was a fortress, heavily guarded and isolated, but it was also their Achilles heel. If Nathan could take it down, he could dismantle the syndicate for good. As Nathan prepared for the final mission, Marcus sent him a message. "I've arranged a distraction to thin their defenses. You'll have a window, but it'll be tight. Don't waste it." Nathan thanked him and turned to Amara. "You're staying here." She crossed her arms. "No, I'm not." "Amara." "No," she interrupted, her voice firm. "I'm coming with you. I know the risks, but I'm not sitting around waiting to be saved anymore." Nathan sighed, realizing he couldn't protect her from everything. She was right. She had earned the right to fight. "Fine," he said, handing her a small pistol. "Stay close to me. Follow my lead. No heroics." Amara nodded, determination flashing in her eyes. Deal. The final assault. The estate was a sprawling complex surrounded by a high wall and patrolled by armed guards. Nathan and Amara approached under the cover of darkness, using the distraction Marcus had arranged, a fire at a nearby warehouse, to slip past the perimeter. Nathan neutralized the first set of guards with silent precision, motioning for Amara to follow. She moved with surprising grace, her nerves steeled by the training Nathan had begun giving her in the days since the safe house attack. Inside the estate, the air was tense. Nathan's sharp instincts picked up on the syndicate's heightened awareness. They knew they were being hunted, but they didn't know who was coming for them. As they moved deeper into the compound, Nathan whispered instructions to Amara, teaching her how to navigate danger in real time. Stay low. Watch the corners. Trust your instincts. They reached the main control room, where a wall of monitors displayed surveillance feeds from the estate and other syndicate operations. Nathan began planting charges around the room while Amara stood guard. "Dad," she whispered, her voice tight with fear. "Someone's coming." Nathan turned just in time to see a guard enter the room. Amara raised her pistol, her hands trembling but steady, and fired. The shot hit the man square in the chest, dropping him instantly. Amara froze, her eyes wide, the reality of her actions sinking in. Nathan placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did what you had to do. Stay focused." Amara swallowed hard but nodded. "Okay." Facing the leader. With the charges set, Nathan and Amara moved toward the main hall, where the syndicate's leaders were gathered. The room was lavish, filled with opulence that contrasted starkly with the horrors they orchestrated. At the center of it all stood a man Nathan recognized from the files, a wealthy tycoon named Victor Langston, the mastermind behind the syndicate. Langston turned as Nathan and Amara entered, flanked by armed guards. "So, you're the man who's been causing me so much trouble," he said, his voice calm and oily. "I have to say, I'm impressed. But you've made a mistake coming here." Nathan's gaze was icy. "The only mistake was yours. You thought you could take my daughter and get away with it." Langston's eyes flicked to Amara, a smug smile spreading across his face. "Ah, the girl. A fine asset. Shame she's so spirited." Before Nathan could react, Amara raised her pistol. "Shut up," she said, her voice trembling but fierce. "You don't get to talk about me." Langston raised his hands mockingly, fiery, just like her father. Nathan stepped forward, his gun trained on Langston. "Call off your men." Langston chuckled. "You think you can kill me and end this? You don't understand how deep this goes." "I don't need to understand," Nathan replied. "I just need to burn it down." The explosion. Nathan fired the first shot, and chaos erupted. He and Amara moved as a team, taking down Langston's guards with brutal efficiency. Nathan's years of training showed in every calculated movement, while Amara proved herself capable and brave. Langston fled toward a hidden exit, but Nathan pursued him, cornering him in a small study. The older man sneered, "Killing me won't stop it. Others will take my place. Let them try," Nathan said, his voice cold as he fired a single shot. Langston collapsed, his empire crumbling with him. Nathan and Amara barely made it out of the estate before the charges detonated. The explosion lit up the night sky, a fitting end to the darkness that had consumed so many lives. The estate burned, and with it, the last remnants of the syndicate's power. A new dawn. Days later, Nathan and Amara sat on the porch of a new safe house, watching the sunrise. The syndicate was dismantled, its leaders dead or imprisoned. The leaked files had sparked a national reckoning, exposing corruption at every level. Amara leaned against her father, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think it's really over?" Nathan wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Not entirely. There will always be people like them. But they'll think twice before coming after us, or anyone else." Amara nodded, a faint smile playing on her lips. "What now?" Nathan smiled, his first genuine smile in weeks. "We live. We move forward. Together." For the first time in years, Nathan felt a sense of peace. The fight had cost them dearly, but it had also given them something priceless. Freedom, hope, and an unbreakable bond. They had faced the darkness and emerged stronger. And if the darkness ever returned, Nathan Miles would be ready.